Okay, let's talk about those three, if that's okay. The Department of Education, we have school, they call it teacher furloughs, or the students are out of school so many days a year now because of the budget shortfall, and there's negotiations going on about how to get that back. So the kids aren't out of school because of the parent uproar. But what about the Department of Education? How much money are they getting?
It's averaged about $2 billion a year. Just about 50% of the budget now. And when we started this out, Malia, again, every department was restricted by a certain dollar amount. So they were told, you have to operate your department with this much less. So same with the Department of Education, same with the University of Hawaii. Their governance is different. So of course, while the governor has the authority to restrict money, how they go about actually accomplishing that restriction is left to the governance. So again, the board and the department decided, because we were all negotiating union contracts at the same time, so they decided that they would reduce their expenditures by negotiating furloughs for the teachers. I mean, that's because salaries and wages are our largest expense, 60% of our budget. That obviously is the first place we would look to save money. Governor did it for the departments that she has the authority over, and so did the DOE. Unfortunately, in that process, then you impact students.
Right.
And while again, I know from the very beginning that was not the governor's intent to impact students, she's not basically in charge. They're governed by a different structure, so that would not have been her choice, but it was the choice of the boards and the departments.
Well, I think a lot of people don't realize that the governor is not actually the head of the department. She doesn't oversee the head of the Department of Education.
That's correct.
And so it's actually a superintendent who oversees all the schools. We're the only centralized school system in the nation.
Yes.
And we have one board of education.
Yes.
And those 13 people, I guess it is, or if you count the student, 14, make all the decisions along with the superintendent on how everything is going to go, and also with the unions.
That's right. Right. And yes, they are basically the lead in the negotiations with the unions. So and there is a proposal, by the way, in the legislature this year to change that governance and basically put it to the voters to decide how they believe our Department of Education should be governed.
All the governors are supporting that. All the ex-governors, right?
Yes.
All Democrats.
Yes. Again, so everyone can call on the one person that is responsible. Right now, they can't call on that one person that's responsible or should be responsible for education.
Right. So when you talk about $2 billion, let me just put you on the spot and ask you, do you think there's waste in the Department of Education?
I think
that could be cut other than, school furloughs.
Yes. I think there are other means to reduce their expenditures and not have to engage in furloughs. Yes.
So, but do you have any kind of input into that process, or it's just?
Well, again, I've been invited to board meetings. I've expressed issues, but it is ultimately their decision. It is. Whether I personally don't believe that they scrubbed numbers well enough to get to the point of doing good for the students rather than doing good for the unions.
So the unions are kind of blaming the governor, actually, at this point, right?
Yes, it's a blame game now, and it's unfortunate because then people are losing sight of who's suffering at this point. It's the students.
Right.
Right.
And as they're out of school and parents are struggling to find care for them and things like that. But I know, watching the numbers on the Department of Education, it seems like their enrollment's going down. So does that mean their budget goes down?
You would think, wouldn't you? And again, when we gauge their performance, should it not be linked to the amount of resources they have? And they've not performed well. You can just look at student
achievement rates,
test scores, and that's the link that I don't believe is being focused on. So yes, because I think a lot of students are going to charter schools because they are successful with achievement, or private schools if the parents can afford that, but not many can.
Well, we're looking at, some of the top schools in Hawaii range from about 12 or 13,000 to about $16,000 for, say, Punahou or somewhere, a school like that, Iolani. What does it cost to educate a student in the Department of Education, approximately?
Oh, the last I recall, it's just shy, I think, of $10,000.
10,000, and then if you include all the other capital improvements and things like that, doesn't it get up to a little bit higher than that?
Yeah, I think if you include those issues for debt service and things.
Private schools are able to make it go.
And our top school does not have any planning days either.
Right. I know, Iolani.
Yes.
That's right, the teachers. And my mom is a teacher, and I don't think she has any planning days. So a lot of private school don't seem to have that. So that's another debate over should the planning days be used to cover the furlough days so the kids can go back to school, right?
Right. Absolutely.
Well, what about some of the other departments? You have the Department of Human Services, and under that you have a lot of people saying, well, where's my social services? And you have the people that are with the Free Association of States, like the Marshall Islands and things like that, coming and wanting services. So there's always a big debate over that. So maybe you can fill me in on what's going on with the Department of Human Services.
Well,
budget cuts.
Medicaid in the Department of Human Services is a huge expense. And again, we've gotten to the point where those constituents feel entitled. But with entitlements, if we continue the way we are, we will not be able to sustain it financially. One just needs to look, and we look at numbers every day. We cannot. Now, to get all those that are involved in decision making to realize that and make the hard decisions that have to be made for our state to sustain what we currently receive in finances. Now, we always hope, obviously, and we're hoping in the next year or two that our economy will start to improve. I think I don't know, I'm not an economist myself, you just have to look at trends, but we're hoping that we've kind of hit bottom and then now we'll slowly improve over time. So we need to wait for that slow improvement, but in the meantime recognize we can't spend what we did last year or the year before. So the issue of entitlements really needs to be looked at, and what benefits we continue to pay when we cannot. I can't stress that enough, because it's like I realize that, and I don't know how. I'm sure everybody in their households realize that. Don't have money you can't spend.
Right. Well, how much does that department get a year, approximately? Department of Human Services.
Well, they are the next to the Department of Education, Department of Human Services would be next. And they get about $1 billion, but they get a lot of federal dollars too, because Medicaid is matched with federal dollars, and they do well to do that. But again, when we get to the point that we can't even provide the state matching, the loss of federal dollars, yes, is a concern, but we don't have the funds to match it. So how do we get it?
Well, a lot of the protests we see at the Capitol are people that want money from the Social Services Department or the Department of Education.
Yes.
And they're basically putting it on the governor, like, why aren't you giving us the money? So what is your answer?
Because there is no money. Lately, my answer has been pretty consistent. I'm very quick to say there's no money. I don't know how else to say it. But until the state starts to receive the kind of tax revenues we did probably 2 or 3 years ago, you have to put a halt on spending.
Now, what about, the government's basically supposed to be for core services, and it's grown and grown and grown and grown. And so is it a point where it's really getting down to what is government? Is that kind of a debate of what's government supposed to be providing?
Absolutely, and I think the legislature has engaged in some of it and probably needs to do more, because I know when we submitted the budget, again, that would be the easiest thing to reduce, is all the very recent programs, because you would have to think those are not core. They've just been implemented very recently in some of the departments. So that's what they did. And we went along with that because, yes, we go back to the basics. That exists in the Department of Education also. Go back to core and then work from there. And hopefully then their student achievement scores can improve if they concentrate on those things that are needed.
Right.